Hello.
How are you? Thank you so much. My subject about full presentation is tourism industry situation in Canada. And as I mentioned to Sam, I apologize.
Cannot hear you.
Now, sir, would you unmute yourself because I muted everyone and I cannot unmute you now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Everybody hear me?
Yes. Would you repeat your last sentence one more time?
Yeah. I thought that my presentation subject is tourism industry situation in Canada. And as I mentioned before to Sam, I apologize for technical problem that occur for me today, and some slides and some tables that I read it for this presentation. I cannot use of these slides, so I send to you later today or until tomorrow. I send all of the tables and information that gathering for you. The main sources that I use for my presentation related to UNWTO. It means that United Nations World Tourism Organization, and this is a main source. And also another source is Canada.ca. These are of two sources that I use for this presentation. Let me start from definition of tourism. In order to prevent these accords to define tourism, UNWTO defined it as indicated tourism comprises the activities of persons traveling to and staying in places outside their usual environment. It means that the tourist is a person who leave the home and main country and travel to another country for not more than 1 year. It is very important. If somebody travel to another country and live there more than 1 year, we cannot say to this person tourist. It is very important that UNWTO mentioned that. For some purposes, like leisure, business, visiting relatives, and other purposes. It is very important now, there are three types of tourism. Domestic tourism, that refers to the traveling inside country. Inbound tourism, it means that a traveler who coming to a country, for example, a traveler from Chinese to Canada, from US to Canada, it named is inbound tourism. And also outbound tourism. It means that the Canadian who, for example, going to abroad, going to another country. So we have three major types of tourism: domestic tourism, inbound tourism, and outbound tourism. And also UNWTO present a classification of various forms of tourism. These includes historical tourism. It means that some tourists going to another country for visit of the historical places and historical attractives. Another kind is cultural tourism, art, going to another country for art, for cinema, for theater, and something like that, for costumes, for foods, all of them categorized in the cultural tourism. Also, another type is leisure tourism, health tourism. The health tourism means that somebody who going to the another country for health matter. For example, I can get to an example for Iran, because the medical, mm, uh, because the health expensive is in Iran is very low. Some of people from neighbors countries like Azerbaijan, like Afghanistan, and something like that, coming to Iran for uh, doing a surgery, doing operation, and something like that. All of them is health tourism. Another kind of tourism is winter tourism. Winter tourism for the uh, wonderful and beautiful views in the winter, sports winter, and something like that. And finally, nature tourism that related to ecotourism, related to the nature, related to the environment, and something like that. All of them is classification for various form of tourism. Now, let me talk about the tourism industry in Canada, tourism industry situation in Canada. The UNWTO reported that Canada saw a record-breaking number of international tourist arrivals in 2018. The statistics is very wonderful, I think. In 2018, totally 21.13 million people, tourists coming to Canada. And for the first time, Canada entered to 15 top countries in the world in the ranking of UNWTO. So I repeat it, 21st million people visit of Canada in 2018. If possible, it is wonderful for you that the combination of traveler who coming to Canada, 14.4 million people coming from US, the highest level recorded since 2004. And 814,000 people coming from UK. And if you compare these people, these amount of peoples with 2017, we can high percent, 12% increase in the number of tourists from UK. Another country, almost 700,000 tourists come from China to Canada. Almost 600,000 coming from France, 400,000 from Mexico, and 300,000 from India. These are 6 countries that the majority of tourists coming to Canada come from these countries. Let me look at some economic statistic about tourism industry in Canada. In 2018, all of tourists spending in Canada was $45.2 billion US dollar. It means that 8% from total GDP in Canada. It means that 8% from GDP, Canada's GDP, come from tourism industry.
Would you tell us what GDP stands for?
Yeah, GDP is gross development, gross domestic production, gross domestic production. And the tourism industry is a very important in create employment also. Employment generated by tourism in 2018 in Canada was 750,000 directly jobs in the tourism industry, and the main tourism destination in Canada in 2018 was Vancouver, Quebec City, Montreal, Toronto, and Ottawa. This is the ranking of cities that was destination for the tourists who coming to Canada. So as a result, the total of employment in Canada in 2018 was 15,700,000 employment generated in this year. It means that the employment generated by tourism was 70%, and it is very important. It means that 70% of employment generated in the Canada come from tourism, and it is very important. And finally, it is wonderful if we refer to the kind of tourists who come from to Canada for attraction. According to the Canada.ca reported, the first one purposes for coming to Canada is nature tourism. It means that the tourists who coming to Canada, the first purposes is seeing nature, animal, and something like that, ecotourism and something like that. The second purpose is related to winter tourism. And the third purpose is cultural tourism. So these one is our main purposes for tourists who coming to Canada. Thank you so much for attention to this presentation. Actually, I sent to you some tables and some graph also, and now I am ready for response to your questions.
Okay. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Nasser, for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very
Good
much.
information.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you. Any questions for Nasser?
It was clear.
Pardon?
It was clear.
I didn't catch that.